I figured out a way to make the text bigger, so that's awesome. Chapter 3, Into the Frying Pan. Your first clue that something's happening is the acrid smell of burnt hair. The smell of the fire had cloaked everything in a dozen flavors of smoke, carbon, and melted plastic. And the smell of dirty panic wafts from the crowd around you. However, that's all background to you right now. The smell of freshly burnt hair cuts through the settling fog of scent like a knife. It helps that the source of the smell pushes through the crowd right by you, stinking of burnt fur and panic. For the briefest moment, you lock eyes with a mottled brown lepus. Lepus. Is that like a, what are the animals that hang by their tails and sleep upside down? Voles? Nope. Possum. Is that like a possum? Or a fox? I'm sure we'll figure it out in a second. Oh, a rabbit? Yes, it's a rabbit. As she runs past you, it registers that you know her. She's one of the gang members who hung around your building. You avoided them for the most part, but she's one of the few that you know by name. Francesca. You are sure that's her name. A rabbit of Peruvian ancestry, one of the more common Moro breeds. She could have blended invisibly into the crowd if she weren't in a panicked run, clutching a dirty oblong cardboard box the length of her entire torso. She also would have been long gone already if it wasn't for the crowd blocking her progress. Even so, she's dodging people like a receiver heading for the end zone. A quick glance back at the direction she came from shows you the giant form of Tiny still talking on his phone, oblivious to the commotion. His back is to you, and you know he's the reason Francesca is panicking. Given Francesca's panicked, half-burnt appearance, you're certain she must know something about the explosion and fire. You spin back around toward the disturbance in the crowd she's leaving in her wake. What do you do? Chase her, call, stop that rabbit. There are police arriving. I chase her down and wave down some cops. Try and keep an eye on her and find a cop I can quietly point her out to. Tiny is looking around for blah blah blah. I don't want to crack skulls, but I do want to talk to her, so I'm going to chase her. You shove past the smaller Moros after Francesca. You aren't as fast, but you can push the press of the crowd easier than she can. You catch glimpses of her through the crowd, her ears flapping, her burnt brown fur, the box she's carrying. Weirdly formed sentence. Then she glances over her shoulder when she reaches a clearing in the mass of people, and her eyes widen as she sees you pursuing her. It doesn't seem possible, but she manages to run even faster, her huge feet pushing her to leap through a gap in the crowd. You try to run faster, but you lose her in the crowd. You end up on the fringes looking around, wondering where she'd gone. Great, you mutter quietly at the vanished rabbit. Behind you, someone says, "Would you please turn around, sir?" I'm a lady, thank you very much." It's a human voice, and you tense involuntarily because only a cop would address anyone as sir while ordering them around like that. And humans, male and female alike, are so preoccupied with memories that they almost always default to assuming all Moros are male, unless they're clearly pregnant or nursing. The cop is obviously addressing you. That can't be good. You turn around to face the police officer. The officer smiles slightly and says, "We need to ask you a few questions. If you could come with me, please." He's English, obviously. He's a bobby. The cop may be putting a pleasant face on things, but you see a few more cops behind him with serious expressions. It's plain that the officer's request is not optional. You follow him, a little reluctantly, over to a line of police vans parked around a block from the fire. In one, you see about a half-dozen surly and cuffed Moros. They eye you suspiciously as the cop leads you to another, empty van. The cop waves you to sit on a bench in the back of that one. He says, "Someone will be with you in a moment. I have other interviews ahead of you." He's interrupted by a growl from outside, followed by a wet thud that sounds suspiciously like a truncheon connecting with someone's skull. He sighs quietly and continues, "It's going to be a long day." He pulls an industrial-looking tablet from a slot by the rear doors to the van and taps a code into it. Then he hands it to you. "Please fill out that while you wait." He gestures at a pile of fabric on the bench next to you, "And please put those on." The van doors slam shut, leaving you alone. Feeling you have little choice, you pick up the sweats and get dressed. You glance at the tablet and sigh. It's the inevitable paperwork, something the cops really should be filling out themselves. It's asking for all the typical demographic info, name, species, and so on. You grit your teeth and begin. I see, so now we get to fill in our backstory. I wonder how relevant this will prove to be. First, it asks your gender, and you enter female. The next item is species. There are hundreds of different types of Moros out there, and the first question asks about the order family. The first question asks about the order/family of your particular species. You notice that it's listed roughly in order of increasing rarity. At least you notice any Moros from lower on the list, a lot more than from Moros on the top. Okay. Of course, your entry, Ursidae, is close to the bottom of the list. Once that is selected, you find the selection for bear on the next page and select it. Moro species all originated in a lab somewhere, and every nation developed something slightly different. Different countries mean different species, even if it's starting from the same genetic material. So while nowadays most Moros here, like you, were born on US soil, every questionnaire still asks you about country of origin. That's how they phrase it too, as if you were a refugee when you've never even set foot out of the city. Still, even though it rarely has any significance aside from indicating how common and how noticeable a species you are, you need to answer the question. Bears are uncommon and only have 2 known sources, Russia or China. I'm gonna stick with Russia. I don't want to be a panda. They're not actually bears though, are they? Are they? I don't know. Koala bears aren't bears. Of course they want your name, first name, surname, and aka nickname, if any. You glance at the surname box. It's not as if Moros have existed long enough for family lines to mean anything. Most of the nameless refugees from prior generations literally did not have one until the immigration paperwork was filled out by some bureaucrat. That was why most Moros had surnames, and sometimes even given names, that were just location names originating from where their species was developed. That's changing a bit with your generation, with a lot of people shedding and adopting new names. Quite a few Moros have now adopted common US surnames, or names from celebrities or popular Moros. But it's not really that common yet. What's your surname? Samara, Volgograd, Tjumin, Saratov. Let's see what the other options are. Something else. Oh, we can type my surname in. Sure, let's go Foehamner. What is my given name? Yes, my first name shall be... I'm gonna go with Natasha. Do I have a preferred nickname? Yes. People call me by my last name, Foe. There are a few more questions: social security numbers, age, address, which, glumly, you already think of as a former address, and so on. After you're done, the tablet beeps and shows a little animated checkmark to show the form has been uploaded somewhere. It shuts off automatically, giving you nothing to do but wait for the return of the cop. You don't have that much longer to wait. Within a few minutes, the van door opens and a new human steps back into the van. The man is in street clothes, but his rumpled suit and tie scream cop as loudly as a riot shield and a baton. His dark brown complexion gives the lie to the Moro slang term pink. Although originally referring to a lack of fur, the Moro term still makes more sense than a human preoccupation with dividing themselves into black and white. This cop aside, some humans really did have pink skin. If anyone saw a human whose flesh was actually colored white, someone would probably be calling an ambulance. The cop takes a step and retrieves the tablet. He taps it a few times and looks at it. Then he looks at you and asks, "Foe, is it?" "Yes." "Oh, I didn't do his voice. Who's this guy?" "Foe, is it?" He can be a gravelly gumshoe. "Well, Foe, I'm Detective Leonard Toomey, and I think you can probably guess I'm looking into the fire here. I wanted to ask you a few questions." You and Detective Toomey share an uncomfortably long silence. I'm not going to be super aggressive or silent. I am going to talk. Let's see. We can try to... that one will help. I'll talk to him, but that doesn't keep me from asking him what's going on. Let's do that one. Yeah, let's do that one. I mean, this is the better option. Let's go with the safe option. Wait for a lawyer. "So, Foe, have you noticed any gang activity around your building? Am I under arrest? I just want to ask you a few questions with the damned saints." Maybe I should have a lawyer then. Detective Toomey looks nonplussed, but while he probes a few more times, even asking about this cat you saved from the fire, you stand firm, not to talk without a lawyer present. Eventually, he sighs and shakes his head. "Thanks a lot for making a shitty day that much worse." Toomey walks over and hands you a card. "Screw you, don't make me feel bad for exercising my rights." You take it from him a little reluctantly. I would have actually been much more open to just talking to them if they hadn't, put me in the back of a truck and had me fill out a bunch of information like I'm being, taken in or something. You take it from him a little reluctantly. "Put that in your pocket in case you come to your senses. Now get the hell out of here." With a sense of relief and Toomey's card in your pocket, you exit the police van into the morning light. The relief doesn't last. You suspect that your refusal to talk has probably convinced Detective Toomey that you're a member of one of the drug-dealing gangs in Moreytown. Then he's probably a terrible cop. Either the damn Saints or one of their rivals. You may have avoided getting tangled up with the police for now, but the stench of smoldering rubble reminds you of what's happened and what you've lost. What have I lost, really? I mean, a place to live sucks. I didn't get the impression I had, like, possessions. Like, I'm sure I had more than nothing, but I didn't get the sense that there was objects I cared about overly much. You face back towards the remains of the Essex Arms. About half of the crowd has gone, and there's no sign of flames anymore. Firefighters pour water into the wrecked building, and what billows out is now more steam than smoke. The cops parked down from the side of the building opposite your apartment, where the most severe damage is. All the glass is gone from the windows, the walls charred black. I hope everyone from my building is alright. You watch the crowd for a moment, hoping everyone got out of the building. You can't help but think of the rat that had been trapped in an upper-story apartment. You shudder, thinking that there might have been anyone the firefighters didn't get to in time. That seems very likely. You face the destruction for several minutes, not moving, letting the shock of it all sink in. Then it dawns on you like the sun of an awful new day. You're late for your job. Chapter 4. No Good Deed. It's easily a good hour into your shift before you make it the few blocks to Nature Foods. The grocery store is one of the few examples of recent construction in this neighborhood. It's a faceted block with shallow angles softening the edges of what would otherwise be a giant chrome and glass brick. Sandwiched behind the glass is a small rainforest's worth of hothouse plants that serve to push the corporate image as subtly as a baseball bat to the face. The effect is somewhat dampened by the fact all this green squats in the middle of an acre of asphalt as natural as a blast crater. There is a sick sort of irony that Nature Foods is the only major grocery chain with a presence in Moreytown, given the whole corporation identity is based around locally sourced, non-GMO foods. It'd be somewhat hypocritical if all the non-humans in the neighborhood shared the human fear about genetically engineered food, or maybe it made sense, since you all were in a position to see how less than omniscient human scientists were when tinkering around with someone's genome. But that wasn't why they opened a store here of all places. Nature Foods also tried to generate PR around it being a good corporate citizen, which meant conspicuously throwing a small percentage of its profit at some cause or issue its focus groups told them their target market cared about. And apparently, people who spend inordinate amounts of money on organic free-range kale cared about low-income neighborhoods having access to overpriced all-natural produce. So about 6 years ago, Nature Foods opened about a dozen stores in crappy neighborhoods, proclaiming their shiny greenhouse facades as new oases in vast food deserts. You cross the asphalt perimeter toward the back of the store by the loading docks. Other Moros are unloading refrigerated cargo trucks. You see their clean white smocks and you're reminded that you're wearing ill-fitting sweats from the local police department. Worse, you catch sight of the human manager standing by the employee entrance. Mr. Francis is round for a human, his general hairlessness fulfilling the slang term pink as much as anyone could. In fact, he seems even pinker than usual as he turns toward you. His posture and body language scream nerves. You smell the fear as soon as you're within a few steps of him. This can't be good. Foehamner. He calls you over even though he's standing directly in front of the employee entrance facing you. The only way you could avoid contact with the man would be to make a wide detour around him. We can stop. We can grit my teeth and say, yes, sir. Wave hello, pretend to hear him. What's up, sir, I think is too casual. I don't get the impression I'm that casual with this guy, so I'm gonna go with the option 2. Your boss seems to pick up on your annoyance, probably because of the insincere sir. His expression hardens into something more difficult to read. Something difficult for you to read. Okay, so I suspect whatever option I'd picked would have pissed him off. Something about the formal address cuts through. Oh wait, he hesitates, apparently gathering his thoughts, and he says, "Ms. Foehamner, what was it? He's a whiny. I'm trying to do like the waiter guy from Ferris Bueller. Ms. Foehamner, I'm afraid we have a problem." Something about the formal address cuts through your annoyance. Like his nervousness, that was not typical for Mr. Francis. What do you mean problem, you ask him. I mean problem as in the friends of yours who came by 20 minutes ago. Who? You don't have a clue what Mr. Francis is talking about. He doesn't seem to hear your question. They come in threatening the staff, asking about you. That's unacceptable. Corporate has a zero-tolerance policy for criminal activity. You try hard to sound civil. What criminal activity? If his reaction is any indication, nervously backing up a step and nearly falling on his human ass, you don't succeed particularly well. I don't know why a street gang is looking for you, and I don't care. We can retrain any employee with those kind of criminal associations. After everything else you've been through this morning, you stare at the human in disbelief. You're firing me? Not to mention you're over an hour late. The rank scent of his nerves chokes you almost as much as his breath. A wave of emotion crashes over you. The guy is acting nervous. I bare my teeth and give him something to be nervous about. No. He has some nerve talking about zero tolerance when he's paying most of his employees under the table. I wonder if corporate would like to know about that. That one. Yeah, that one. That's a real shame, you tell him. Letting me go like this when I'm one of the few people working here legally. What do you mean by that? You gesture toward the loading dock. Come on. Everyone here knows you're paying half these guys under the table. Wouldn't it be a bit disruptive if corporate got wind of that? Maybe by way of the state labor department. You catch a whiff of fear as your threat sinks in. For several moments he doesn't react. Then he pulls out his wallet and slowly peels out 100 in smaller bills. Miss Foehamner, I think you are mistaken. He holds out a small wad of bills towards you. Aren't you? You consider pressing your luck, but decide against it. You take his offering and say, Maybe I am. Just rumors, after all. Good luck with your future endeavors. Thank you, you say, matching his lack of sincerity. You pocket the money and walk away. You walk away from Nature Foods with literally nowhere else to go. You pace the streets of Moreytown, fuming, nursing your anger at Mr. Francis and the impersonal corporate edifice of Nature Foods. Why couldn't that place have burnt down instead? Then at least you'd know where you'd be sleeping tonight. It was a crappy job and, aside from the loss of income, you'll be shedding no tears over losing it. Think of it this way, you mutter to yourself. You don't have to worry about rent. You almost chuckle until your stomach rumbles and you realize you haven't eaten since before you got the subpoena yesterday. Your thoughts turn from anger to the more immediate concern of your next meal. Fantasies about Nature Foods burning to the ground are replaced by similarly impractical fantasies of the so-called rainforest cafe that the store has wedged in next to its greenhouse facade. Impractical because after losing your job like that, it'd be asking for trouble. Not to mention, your employee discount has probably expired. Before you can come to any practical thoughts of food, someone steps into your path, distracting you. Have you heard the good news? You peer down to see a white-furred rat who's barely waist-high on you, dressed in the most outlandish clothing you have ever seen on a Moreau. The outfit must be homemade because you can't imagine anyone actually selling anything like it. It's an oversized robe made of snow-white faux fur. The sleeves hang past the rat's hands and a hood half buries its head. A pattern is stitched on top of the hood in black thread, in the shape of a second face, as if the rat is wearing the skin of a second, much larger Moreau. Well, this is weird. The rat is just weird, and you find yourself curious about the guy. You wonder what his story is, probably because you've had enough of dwelling on your own story at the moment. The difference in your relative sizes doesn't seem to dissuade him from talking to you. He raises his arms so his fur sleeves slide down, revealing his naked pink hands. He asks, Are you ready to hear his message? You wonder who the rat's talking about. You hear the capital in his, and you suspect that the pronoun is not referring to the usual suspect. The rat is joined by a couple of friends in similar robes, one black-furred, one brown. Their high-pitched voices join the chorus, Preach, brother, and witness. What message? I'm curious. One of the rats presses a flyer into your hands. The words Enlightenment Gathering dominate the top half of the page, along with an address and a time this Thursday evening. You glance up at them. They start talking. Chanting, really. The Shining One, chants White. Gives a message, replies Black. To save us from our own submission, finishes Brown. The cadence almost feels like a rebuke, as if they were measuring your worthiness and found you wanting. The white rat raises his arms to the sky, his naked pink hands curled as if he wants to claw the eyes out of the sun. What we were came from the divine. What we were was untouched by the sins of men. The black rat echoes the gesture. Men took this from us. Men claim that it is no longer ours. Brown does likewise. Men took the work of God and remade it in his image. They lower their arms, and their voices drop some of the ritual mannerisms, though they keep tossing an invisible conversation ball between themselves. White, black, brown, repeat. What the Shining One teaches is that this is our legacy from God, and it cannot be taken from us. The humans might force us into their clothes, their buildings, their jobs, but they cannot take our souls, our spirits. What we were is still what we are.
What we once had, we still have. If you accept this in your heart, you will free yourself from all human oppression. There's only one way to end your submission. You must discard the idols of men, follow the Shining One, or lose all that is what you are.
That last comment almost sounds like a threat. The trio looks at you expectantly. You suppose they're waiting for some sort of response. No donation. Let's continue this charade a little longer. Let's go with asking about the Enlightenment Gathering. You glance at the flyer again and wave it in the general direction of the White Rat. So what exactly is an Enlightenment Gathering?
It's where we found our path. It's where we are shown the way. It's where we hear the word. It is where we found our spirit.
You say. Pretty much some sort of revival meeting. Say what you want about these three, they're certainly sincere. Okay, Shining One. So who's this Shining One you're going on about, you ask them.
The Shining One is he who is chosen. The Shining One is he who chooses. The Shining One leads us on the path back to ourselves. The Shining One leads us on the path back to our soul. The Shining One leads us on the path back to our spirit. At the gathering, you will see him. At the gathering, you will hear him. At the gathering, you will choose him. At the gathering, he will choose you.
That almost calls for an amen, but you restrain yourself. You really don't know how informative that was, but they're certainly enthusiastic. Okay, let's get out of here. You fold up the flyer. Thanks for the discussion, you say, but I really have to go now. You sidestep around the rats and walk on down the road. Chapter 5. A Human in Moreytown.